Begin what's trending in Guinea Bissau, where military officers have seized control of the government after President Umaro Embaló and his main opponent, Fernando Dias, both declared themselves winners of the presidential election before official results were released. The military suspended the electoral process, closed all borders, and shut down airports, resulting in election observers being trapped in the country. Nigeria's former President Goodluck Jonathan is one of 36 high-profile observers from the African Union, ECOWAS, and the West African Elders Forum currently trapped in the country following the military coup d'etat.
I am hopeful at the moment. We have always dreamt of a peaceful Guinea-Bissau, full of love and harmony. I ask my Guinean brothers to remain calm, because whatever happens, it will be for the benefit of all Guineans.
All right, Dr. Abati, your boss is involved. I'll take some reactions before I come to you. Alien wrote on X, saying Africans have a special way of sending a message to the world that they are not mature for a democratic governing system. It seems alien to our people, and I think we need to admit it at least. Another ex-user wrote, this calls for an immediate intervention by the Nigerian government to begin a rapid process of evacuating the former president of Nigeria from Guinea-Bissau. Finally, Okocha wrote on X, I will want to believe that he's safe. This foreign observation business is no longer a joke in these African countries. If you go to rubber stamp corrupted elections, you may never come back in the future. Good luck to good luck. Good luck to good luck. I thought that was, this is an awkward situation for Nigeria's former president, Goodluck Jonathan. I mean, he went to Guinea-Bissau to ensure democratic elections only to get caught in a military coup. ECOWAS and the AU have condemned the coup. The question now is, how will they secure the release of their own observers while simultaneously demanding restoration of constitutional order? This is, really an awkward situation.
Well, President Jonathan is chairman of the West African Elders Forum, and he founded that body, and along with other African leaders, they monitor the electoral process, the democratic process, not just in West Africa, but also across Africa. And, he has done a lot in that regard since he left office. Now in Guinea-Bissau, we have a situation whereby President Jonathan and other international observers who were waiting for the announcement of the presidential and parliamentary elections that took place on Sunday. The announcement was to be made on Thursday this week. That's tomorrow. Yeah. And then, or is it today? It's today.
Thursday. Today.
Yes, Thursday is today. And then you have this situation at about 1900 GMT yesterday, whereby a group that calls itself the High Command of the Presidential Order, or what do they say? The High Military Command for the Restoration of Order, led by General Dennis Nkanha, who incidentally is the head of the military household in the presidential palace. Then what have they done now? They've suspended the democratic process. They have ordered a curfew. They have closed all borders, land, sea, and air. They've detained the president, Umaro Embaló, the chief of the army, his deputy, the prime minister, and also the other second leading candidate, Fernando Dias. Now, what is the cause of this problem? Sissoko Embaló, 53-year-old, became president of Guinea-Bissau in 2019. His term was supposed to end February 2025. He had even said he was not going to run again. But now we were told he wants to realize the ambition of being the first democratically elected person to win 2 consecutive terms. Yeah. Since Portugal became independent from, Guinea-Bissau became independent from Portugal in 1974. So he claims victory ahead of the announcement of the result. Fernando Dias also claims victory. You have the Prime Minister, Pereira, supporting Fernando Dias. And that's why, these military soldiers have moved in. Now, we have seen since 2021, democracy being in retreat. Beyond when we were celebrating the consolidation of democracy in Africa. We have now seen in Guinea Bissau, which is the latest. We have seen in Gabon. We have seen in Burkina Faso, Niger, Chad, and Guinea-Conakry. So it's a very sad development, and it's very good that AU has condemned, ECOWAS has condemned, but they must go beyond that.
Yes.
The international observers that have been caught in the crossfire in Guinea-Bissau,
36 of them.
Every effort should be made to get them released, to allow them passage. The Nigerian president should call this Nkaha, whatever his name is, and tell him that he cannot keep a former president of Nigeria in Guinea-Bissau, a country of 2.1 million people. Keeping our president.
Imagine that, Dr. Abaribe.
No, the president should step up and say, I'm sending a presidential jet.
Thank you.
You will release former president of Nigeria. And then, you know how they do it. You know, there'll be some threats.
Yes, we need Jonathan.
Who are these people? So, and then the other international observers too, every effort should be made to get them free.
All right.
It is ironic, however, that President Jonathan, who in 2015 willingly respected the will of the people and handed over power and conceded defeat. Embaló, it wasn't clear enough to him to say that with this chairman of West African Elders Forum here, if they say I've lost the election, I should just respect myself. But that is the crisis of leadership that you have, not just in West Africa, but across Africa.
All right. I'm glad that you called on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to intervene. I mean, this is really getting out of hand. West African nations are turning into a coup hotspot. It shouldn't be. Meanwhile, the Senate has resolved to amend Nigeria's Anti-Terrorism Act to prescribe a death penalty without the option of a fine for all kidnapping offences, removing all judicial discretion in sentencing. The resolution followed a motion by Senator Abdul Ningi, who urged the Senate to classify kidnapping as a terrorist offence that would automatically attract a death penalty, irrespective of circumstances or jurisdiction.
Kidnapping now pays more than oil. Kidnapping pays more than sitting as a senator or sitting in the villa. And therefore, as lawmakers, what do we need to do? We now look at kidnapping and say we must amend our laws to say kidnapping is a terrorist act and must therefore be treated as such and must therefore carry the death penalty.
Well, the Senate witnessed a heated debate on Wednesday as Abia South Senator Enyinnaya Abaribe berated the government's failure to hold the military accountable for withdrawing troops from the Kebbi school just before the abduction of 24 students. Abaribe insisted that real governance requires confronting the uncomfortable truth of who ordered the pullout and demanded accountability. Let's take a look.
The governor of Kebbi said that somebody ordered troops out and people were kidnapped. Till today, nobody in Nigeria knows what happened. And no question has been asked. And we are sitting down here as a parliament and we turn and we talk. Yet, somebody is responsible. If I'm the commander-in-chief, I will call the army commander in that place and the head of the army and say, if you don't get me the head of this person who withdrew the troops to put all these children in jeopardy, then you make an example of him. That is how a country is run. A country is not run on pacification. A country is run on confronting issues. I rest my case.
That was a powerful speech. Well, Akpabio has directed Senate Leader Kwemi Bamidele to urgently prepare an amendment to the Anti-Terrorism Act to ensure that once kidnapping is established in court, a death sentence must follow. Currently, Nigeria's Anti-Terrorism Act only prescribes death penalty for kidnapping when the offense results in the death of a victim. But here is the problem. Despite the frequency of attacks, many kidnapping cases end up with victims being released and no arrests. So the real question also follows. How do you execute kidnappers when there are no arrests? Vimbai, we know that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has declared a nationwide security emergency, directing the Nigerian police and armed forces to recruit more personnel to deal with insecurity across the country. Well, in a statement posted on the president's X page, Tinubu called on the police to hire 20,000 new officers to bring the planned intake to 50,000. The president commended agencies for their work in rescuing the schoolgirls in Kebbi and church worshippers in Kwara State, vowing to sustain his administration's efforts to bring back the students still being held in Niger State. I mean, this is also a commendable effort by the president at this moment, by ordering for more boots on ground. You know, I'd like your thoughts on the Senate's push for the death penalty for kidnapped victims at this point. Like I asked in my earlier question to you, Vimbai, we are not seeing arrests. You know, we had 24 girls from Kebbi released, then we had 38 from Kwara released, no arrests. Great upticks with the death penalty, the call for the death penalty. Would we really follow through?
Well, you know, I want to begin by quoting the president himself in June of this year when he visited Benue State and he turned towards the police commissioner, or was it the IGP, and he said, "Why have there been no arrests?" And, you know, this is life. Life is somehow poetic because we now come back around and we ask ourselves the same questions now. Why have there been no arrests? Well, the Senate is rightfully arguing around punitive measures, advocating for higher punitive measures because, of course, the thinking is that if there's a highest level of punishment, then it should deter people from committing these crimes. Well, like you rightfully said, OG, number one, how do we execute people that have not been arrested? But beyond that, there are currently over 3,500 inmates on death row in Nigeria. Well, those are the numbers as of 2024, as published by the Nigerian Correctional Services. So ultimately, let's not be performative in our rage and in this moment that we are trying to see how to resolve this issue. Because, and I call it performative because we know that when it comes down to the crux, very few governors historically have been willing to sign off on death warrants. So in essence, all we're doing is we're crowding the prisons. I say that we go for practical solutions that are enforceable. The death penalty itself, especially in this modern time, beyond the broader global conversation around the death penalty itself, implementation in Nigeria, because of the moral optics and of course because of the political optics as well, has not been efficient. So I say let's focus on holding our forces accountable. Let's find out who ordered the withdrawal of those troops just before the Niger State pupils were abducted. Let's find out why there are so many lapses with regards to our military being able to enforce some of their missions. What happened? Who leaked the memo from the Brigadier General Sani that led to his execution? Those are the types of probes and leaks I think I would like the Senate to focus themselves on and to direct themselves. Because as we get more boots on the ground, as we follow the directives from the president, we need to ensure that the systems work. Right. So, you know, we can't throw, it's important to get more numbers in, but if we're throwing more people into a system that is corrupted within itself, we'll still face similar challenges. So I think, yes, important to see the Senate making this a topical issue, an issue of importance. It was a non-partisan issue. However, let's also not become performative in doing so.
All right. Well said, Pimpai, well said. Meanwhile, the Muslim Council of Elders, under the chairmanship of the Grand Imam Al-Azhar, Dr. Ahmed Al-Tayyib, has vehemently condemned the kidnapping of students, teachers, and staff from St. Mary's Catholic School in northwestern Nigeria. In a statement issued from Abu Dhabi over the weekend, the council affirmed that targeting children and educational institutions is a heinous crime that contradicts the teachings of Islam and all divine religions, violating the most basic ethical and human values as well as international laws guaranteeing children's right to education and a safe life. The council expressed solidarity with the families of the abducted victims and called for urgent international action for the immediate release of all hostages and enhanced protection of educational institutions. Well, this is significant. One of Islam's most respected institutions is publicly denouncing these kidnappings as anti-Islamic and calling them heinous crimes. This condemnation directly contradicts those who try to justify these attacks using religious rhetoric. We hope that this powerful religious voice from the Muslim Council of Elders will influence local clerics and communities to actively resist the terrorists. Meanwhile, the Diocese of Kaduna Anglican Communion has announced the death of Venerable Edwin Archie, the priest in charge of Ebenezer Anglican Church in Ungwan, Majero, who was kidnapped alongside his wife and daughter on October 28th. The diocese confirmed Archie's death on Wednesday night, describing it as a painful loss to the entire diocese. The priest was abducted when bandits broke into his house in Nisi community, Chinkun local government area of Kaduna State, near the Kaduna refinery. The kidnappers later contacted the family demanding 600 million naira ransom and released photos showing the couple in distressed conditions alongside other captives who appeared malnourished and tied in chains. His wife and daughter remain in the hands of the kidnappers, with the diocese calling for prayers for their release. Well, this is heartbreaking, Ayo. The priest has died in captivity after nearly a month of being held. His wife and daughter are still being held, probably traumatized by witnessing his death. I mean, this story, broke my heart. This priest is from Ukwan. I mean, this is heartbreaking. Really.
It's really heartbreaking. And when we hear stories like this, especially when we have the opportunity or when we see the pictures of these abductees or kidnapped victims in captivity, the hope and the prayer is that they will come out alive. So when we hear stories like this, it's stark, it's real. There are a number of unreported incidents like this where people who are kidnapped end up dying. And, it goes back to that conversation around whether or not there ought to be a death penalty for kidnappers. And, there have been arguments here and there. But when you look at the devastation of what kidnapping does to communities, to families, to people's lives, you can then understand why there's a call for very stiff punishment. In fact, the stiffest of all punishments, which is the death penalty. In addition to this, one of the girls that were kidnapped, the family, I think 3 girls, their dad apparently died of a heart attack, and this was revealed during one of our sister broadcasts here on Arise News, where the CAN chairman had said that as a result of heartbreak. I'm mentioning this story so that we can understand the depth and the seriousness of the challenge before us, and why it's been said again and again that we must show and demonstrate the fact that we are ready and willing to end kidnapping. Now, to a very important story, and I think perhaps one of the most powerful voices that has arisen since this conversation around attacks in the north, insecurity and in Nigeria and so on, is the voice of the Muslim Council of Elders. The best way to attack a lie is to present facts, is to prevent an alternate fact to this matter. Now, a lot of times we looked at Boko Haram, we looked at terrorists and how they have indoctrinated ignorant, I would say, community members by distorting the teachings of the religion, by saying, oh, this is what you will be done. And we've had so many accounts on this. You would get, virgins, you get this, and people do not even know what the truth is. The custodian of the, at least leaders in this religious circle, should come out boldly and speak out against this so that their followers can hear them. This is why we say that we must engage all